Welcome to the Pub Sports Radio NBA Closing Time Show, Wednesday, January 13th. It's Ian Cameron at Skee Profit. We're ready to break down this NBA card, and it's already been just a few weeks into the season, and it is a headache waiting to happen daily to find out who's in, who's out, who's questionable, who's doubtful, who's upgraded to probable. It's just that nonstop circus of trying to find good information, really. From these teams on a daily basis in terms of who's in and who's out. So I think people that have a really good betting season in the NBA this year, more than any other, you always deserve credit for it, praise for it. But I think even more this year, trying to deal with some of the day-to-day headaches of handicapping NBA. Before we get into today's seven-game card, although we have had a couple games postponed on it, Jazz, Wizards, Magic, Celtics, Suns, and Hawks. And that's one of the games I loved on this card was Hawks and Suns. I was ready to lay the points with Phoenix off one of their worst games was their worst game of the season against Washington. And then that game gets pulled out from under the rug on me, Skee. They postpone it. And I thought it was a great home run spot for Phoenix there, but that's life these days in the COVID-19 era. How are you doing, Skee, on this Wednesday? How's the NBA season gone for you so far?
I'm doing okay, and I agree with what you said on this card. This card is very tricky. Like even a couple minutes ago, I think I just saw Zion now ruled out of the Pelicans game. So health protocols are killing a lot of people right now.
Yeah, they certainly are. Health protocols, and that's the COVID stuff on top of just the regular, the thing called injuries that happen every single year.
Oh.
Absolutely a headache to deal with. So to me, it's one of those situations where we've got to end up looking to see if we're going to get some kind of better clarity in terms of these team health situations moving forward. But let's go to the card. Skee will do the best we see. I do have a couple good opinions on this card overall. Bucks and Pistons, we'll start there. Top of the card, Milwaukee, 10.5 point road favorites in this game. The total, 226.5, 227 across the board. Milwaukee got it done convincingly against just an absolutely depleted Orlando Magic team the other night. And to be honest with you, they're one of those teams that when they're focused and play their best, you can handle a team like Detroit. There's no question about that. But Milwaukee and Detroit, we've already seen these. It seems like these teams have played each other like 6 times already this year. They've played each other a bunch, and Detroit, as they have snuck inside the number, in a couple of these games, or at least come close against Milwaukee. So it's a tricky number, laying 10.5 on the road here with this Milwaukee team. I would probably lean a little bit here under the total, 227, but nothing significant. Not a game I expect to have any action or involvement with. Skee, how about you? Bucks versus Pistons.
Yeah, I'll probably agree more to that under. And it's tough. Last year, we know that, in roles like this, Bucks were covering consistently on the road versus lesser competition teams. They would just blow them out. But we just have to take a step back. I know they blew out, who was it? The Magic, I think, the last game. But we'll see if they could do it a couple of tries in a row. I'm not running to the window to back Milwaukee. I probably would honestly grab the points with Detroit this time around if I'm playing this one. So I'll lean Detroit and I'll lean under.
All right, we got Dallas taking on Charlotte. Dallas 3.5, 4-point road favorites, 220.5 the total. This team, if you've been betting Dallas, betting against Dallas, betting some unders with Dallas, it's worked out pretty well. So Dallas, to me, just not that offensive juggernaut they've been. Last year, obviously, was a historic season offensively. Luka Doncic has had a difficult time finding his groove this season offensively. There's been a lot of issues for Dallas, of course. Steven Silas now in Houston, he's got the headache there to deal with the Rockets. But part of the reason why they were so good offensively, Rick Carlisle giving him the credit for it, for just putting this offense in a good frame of mind, good scheming, good game planning, good plays out of timeouts, all of that kind of thing. So it's been tricky to trust this Dallas team, tricky to trust them laying 4 against a Charlotte team that's playing some better basketball lately, no question. Charlotte is starting to round into form. Gordon Hayward, what a huge game he had the other night, just exploded offensively for the Hornets. The one concern I would have is I remember a bet with Charlotte early in the season. I took them plus the points against Dallas. They won outright and blew out Dallas in Big D, and they were getting way more points now for Dallas. You think in the back of your mind, this team might remember just how poorly they played in that game, and they get a chance for some redemption here tonight against Charlotte. And I'm not getting, 9 points or 8.5 points with Charlotte like I did in that game. You're only getting 4 here with Charlotte as a underdog in this one. So it's a tricky game here overall. Charlotte is in good form, straight up in ATS lately, but Dallas, I think, won't take them lightly like maybe they did the first time around. So it's a game I passed on overall. I could make arguments for either of these two sides, maybe a lean to the under, if anything. Skee, what about you here? Your thoughts on the Mavericks and Hornets?
Well, really quick, before I go into that, I just saw a notification pop up that James Harden is going to be traded to the Nets. So we'll see who's all involved in that. But this Dallas and
wow. Yes, I see it. Shams from the Athletics. They put the tweet about it on television in front of me here. Wow. So there you go. James Harden's out.
Yeah, I wonder who they're giving up, but that's definitely a big trade. The Dallas and Charlotte, it's tough for me. When I look at this, I'm looking at who's playing really quick. And a lot of the guys that are out of the lineup for this Dallas team are guys that I want to help out on the defensive end. Initially, my number for this game is closer to 216. I was looking to go under, and I was trying to just understand why the total started to go up, and that may be the reason that the guys that play defense for Dallas are not necessarily in the lineup. Those are the guys that made them this defensive team this year. Granted, Charlotte's been playing better defense lately. Both teams don't play at a fast pace, so that's still the way I lean. I lean towards the under. We'll see if I get there. The under's hit 5 times this year, 5-0 for Charlotte at the house. If I'm playing the side, I'd have to back more of the rested road team in Dallas. They've had like 4 days off now with their last game being postponed. They get Porzingis back. Maybe had time to just get him ready. So I like Dallas here, and I would pick the under.
And not exactly murderer's row in this nice little spurt that Charlotte's had. I mean, they played Atlanta. They caught New York on the second night of back-to-backs as well when they played the Knicks. So it's not like they've been, tested against great competition during this little surge that James Borrego's Charlotte team has had these last few games. So we'll see if they can, again, they annihilated Dallas in the first meeting. Dallas may not take too kindly to that here tonight. The problem is for Dallas, as you mentioned the guys out: Brunson, Richardson, Dorian Finney-Smith. It looks like Max Kleba is out again for this team. Kristaps Porzingis, you might as well just stick the initials GTD and engrave them beside his name for the rest of his career, because that's essentially what we've got with him. Porzingis, he's a game time decision. All 72 games this year. He'll be a game time decision all 82 games next year, all 82 games the following year. That's what that's what we got on our hands with Kristaps Porzingis now at this stage of his career. His body parts, unfortunately, have gotten to the point where it's like they're made out of cotton candy or plastic, and we just can't trust him to suit up on a nightly basis. But he's also a game time decision right now for Dallas. But I do hear what Skee is saying about the spot for Dallas. They're not likely to overlook Charlotte this time around. We both lean under the total here, 220.5, even with those injuries to Dallas. Next up, we've got Brooklyn. The Nets taking on the New York Knicks. Brooklyn 4.5 to 5.5 point road favorites, 219.5 the total in this game. And Skee just mentioned it. A huge trade. James Harden to the Brooklyn Nets for 4 first-round picks and 4 draft swaps is apparently the return that is going to the Houston Rockets in exchange for James Harden. So, looks like nothing but draft capital. Very good draft capital, obviously.
No, I'm seeing that Karis LeVert and Jared Allen are involved.
Oh, they are going too. I was going to say they can't just be. TSN's got to get rid of that. They just said 4 first-round picks and some supplementary picks. I'm like, there's got to be some roster players from Brooklyn that are going to Houston. There's got to be. And you think it might be LeVert?
Yeah, I saw LeVert and I saw Allen. And I'm over here. I don't want to cut you off. I'll get to my breakdown, but I'm making a play on this game right now.
Yes. To me, and it's funny because throwing this aside, this is throwing a completely different curveball, because this is actually one of the games I had an opinion on. It was on the total in this game. Of course, we saw what happened with Brooklyn last night against Denver. They had a miserable first half. They give up 70 points, a ridiculous shooting percentage to Denver. And we know Steve Nash and the kind of coach he is and the kind of guy he is. He's a laid-back personality. He's a player's kind of coach. He's not really going to ruffle feathers. He's just, pretty calm, cool, and collect. That's just Steve Nash. That's his personality. That's his demeanor, essentially. But for Steve Nash, from a Steve Nash perspective, based on his personality, he lit into his team. Apparently, we didn't see any of it. We weren't privy to it, but apparently at halftime, he gave his team the gears for the way they played in the first half last night. He said, we just need to compete better. We need to start showing up and defending someone, guarding somebody. Apparently it was as angry as Steve Nash has been at any point during his early run here as head coach of the Nets. And it looked like a different Brooklyn team in the second half. All of a sudden they were defending. They made a furious comeback, came all the way back to beat Denver last night. I think he finally said, we've got to start, we got the Kyrie situation, forget about it. We've got you guys in and out all the time in the lineup, but the one thing we can do and the one thing we can control is how well we play and how much effort we give at the defensive end of the court. And we saw it from Brooklyn finally in the second half last night in that comeback win against Denver. I think that could carry over into tonight. That the New York Knicks have been a one-way team for me from a totals perspective. You either bet under New York Knicks games or you leave it alone. I think with Brooklyn, shoring up the defensive effort and intensity last night to come back and beat Denver can carry over into this game tonight. Certainly LeVert's going to be out for this game. That's going to take away a key shooter for the Nets now that he looks like he's involved in this trade with Houston. So if anything, this total play gets even stronger for me at 219.5. I don't expect that total to sit at that number for very long. I think it's going to go down. I like the under here with Brooklyn and New York, under 219.5. Skee, obviously this trade is hitting us just as we're doing this show. How does it impact your handicap here when it comes to Nets versus Knicks?
I'm over here following tweet after tweet from Shams and Woj, and maybe the LeVert and Allen are not going directly to Houston, but it's saying that they could be involved going to other teams. So
might be more than two teams in this. Wow, it's getting crazier.
Right. I don't think that they'll stay in the starting lineup with them putting this info out. I think that they'll be without those two guys, and without them, I just think you have a decent number for New York. It's a lot of guys now just piling up for Brooklyn to be without. And I don't know how focused they'll be here tonight. So I'll grab the +5 with the New York Knicks. I just see nobody, or Jared Allen was a big part of, they're a big plus, like I think +8 or plus something with Allen on the floor versus Jordan. So he's big. LeVert, we know he's a bucket, and they won't have those two guys. I'll be on the other side. I'll take the Knicks. And I agree with you. Look, should be less points with LeVert out. So under is probably good too.
Yeah, exactly. LeVert out. Brooklyn snapped to attention defensively finally in the second half against Denver last night at the demand of Steve Nash, who wasn't thrilled at all, apparently, behind closed doors with the first half against Denver. So I think you're going to see them play good defense. And again, and I agree with you now, the Knicks got to look that. I think it's worth it to look that way as well when you see it. Of course, the thing just went off the board as I'm ready to lock something in a couple books, but you would expect that. But hopefully you get it in. Hopefully there's some books still showing it. Shop around. But yeah, I'm with Skee in terms of the Knicks as well. I think they become something worth a look, and definitely the under as well in this game. Lakers and Thunder. We've got the Lakers 8-point road favorites, 218 the total in this game. This total's been bet up a little bit, 215 to 218, kind of like with New York. I'm not looking to bet OKC unders very often, or overs, I should say, very often. That's for sure. And this total's been bet up a bit. I keep thinking that there might be some guys out for the Lakers. This is the kind of situation I can see the Lakers resting people and going load management route when they're back to back. They're off a satisfying blowout win like they did last night against Houston, a team that they're always excited to play the Rockets, and they've owned the Rockets. Now you get them on the second night of back to back against a lesser team. That these could be the spots where Frank Vogel rests a LeBron or rests an Anthony Davis and maybe others on this team. Not indication of that yet. Looks like LeBron is still, as of right now, expected to suit up. It's a game time decision apparently for Anthony Davis. It actually does look like KCP is going to play tonight for the LA Lakers as well. Nevertheless, I would lean a little bit to the Thunder grabbing these 8 points. We got them in a spot off the loss to San Antonio, but again, difficult spot for them. First game home off a road trip. Spurs coming in after a bad performance against a Minnesota team that was without Karl Anthony Towns in that game. San Antonio bounced back with the win against this OKC team last night. So I think you're going to get a good solid effort and a bounce back type of motivational spot for the Thunder. I'll go ahead with OKC here plus the 8, and we'll see where the Lakers go with their starting rotation and who's exactly in and out. You can say that about every game this year in the NBA, but I'm still going to take my chance here with the Thunder getting the points. What's your thoughts, Skee? Lakers Thunder here.
Oh man, Ian, it's so hard to concentrate now. I'm so excited.
Pieces of this trade get out in the open. I know. I'm trying to find out all the details still, and if there's maybe a third.
I'll figure some out now. LeVert got traded to the Pacers now, and Oladipo is going to the Rockets.
Wow.
And Jared Allen is going to the Cavs, I believe, along with Taurean Prince. And it's a lot of guys moving around, so exciting stuff. I'm gonna be all on it as soon as I get off. The Lakers and OKC. I know I saw LeBron is expected to play in this one. Maybe Anthony Davis could sit out, but I mean, I'm just at this point, I'm kind of tired of speculating who's sitting in, who's sitting out, and who's going to play because they always both seem to play every game, no matter if people think they need rest or not. So I'll assume that they both play. And
holy mackerel! Wow.
I don't like the Thunder at home. I kind of said that last time. I think they're a team that's much better on the road.
Yep, and I agree there.
The Lakers, they're a team who prides themselves in winning on the road. I've heard multiple players say it a couple of times. Anthony Davis, LeBron James, they want to go in every road game and get a win. So if they come out focused, and also they said that Anthony Davis called the team out after one of the previous couple of games, and they responded. So until I see that they are not looking focused, I'll be looking to back the Lakers, and I think this game can get over the total. Both teams play at a relatively fast pace, at least lately. Both teams have been pretty good on the defensive end, but I still think they can sneak over with everybody playing.
All right, lean over the total in this one for Skee. Rockets acquiring Karis LeVert in the James Harden deal from Brooklyn and sending LeVert to Indiana in order to acquire a two-time All-Star Victor Oladipo. So there we go. Unbelievable stuff here that we're finding out here. It is an absolute blockbuster. Can I just say something about the Pacers for a second? I don't mind a nice little LeVert-Brogdon tandem in the backcourt, if I do say so myself. I think that's a nice little thing that they got moving forward now. Maybe this Indiana team who had a nice comeback win against Golden State last night. Something to watch out for. I think, that's going to be a nice meshed tandem moving forward for this Pacers team in that backcourt. I like that quite a bit. I think that's the one thing you could have said about the Pacers. That sometimes the backcourt's not always – where's that next guy to help out Brogdon? And LeVert will help him quite a bit. You got Sabonis, you got Miles Turner, the bigs inside, the low post play. That backcourt now solidified big time, I think, with Karis coming on board.
Yeah, I like that move over there a lot. I'm not big on Oladipo anymore. Like, if I was the Rockets, I don't know why you necessarily made that move, but Pacers should be pretty good. I definitely would look for them to just have a good rest of the season. I think they'll be really good.
I think so too, because I've been kind of up and down on the Pacers, lukewarm on them. I know I was looking to fade them in the bubble last year, a lot, especially in the Miami series, and it worked out well. But I thought taking a step back this year, I was kind of wait and see approach. But I like this move. I'm going to be the benefit of the doubt for Bjorgren, the head coach, because he comes from the Nick Nurse tree, and we know Nick Nurse has done outstanding this season, notwithstanding for the Raptors. But definitely, I think Indiana's a better team now. After this deal, if you ask me. All right, moving on now. We've got the next game on the schedule. We've got Memphis and Minnesota. We've got the Wolves here, 2.5 point home favorites, 222.5 the total. That Memphis, I cashed the under in that game, and I know Skee had Memphis, I believe, as well. And I think Memphis was his best bet. That game had to have driven him crazy because Memphis was just schizophrenic that whole game, up and down, go through fits and starts. Give up a 10-0 run, get a 10-0 run themselves. It was that kind of game against a really banged up, severely shorthanded Cleveland team in that game. Now we'll see if the Grizzlies can withstand prosperity, go on the road here, take care of business against Minnesota. Still, obviously, Morant and Jackson, the two big absences injury-wise for this Memphis team out of the lineup. And on the flip side, when you're looking at things with the Timberwolves here, we'll have to see about Karl Anthony Towns, the latest with him. We know he didn't play against San Antonio, but they still found a way to win that game the other night against the Spurs. He's likely to play. It looks like he has been dealing with that wrist injury. The latest reports are he should play. Again, with this stuff, you can never fully take it for granted. Things can change. But obviously, we know he's the most important player, arguably, I would say he is, on this Minnesota team. D'Angelo Russell, Ricky Rubio, Malik Beasley, Anthony Edwards, we're still waiting on consistency for him. I don't know. This one, I kind of lean the Minnesota side. I really do, to be honest with you. I don't know if I saw enough in Memphis. But I want to trust them here on the road again against the Timberwolves, who might be getting a little bit healthier. I would lean a little bit to the slight home favorite Minnesota in this game if I were to make a bet on it. What's your thoughts, Skee, with the Grizzlies and the Timberwolves?
That's a game that I'd much rather not get involved in. But if I have to, if Towns plays, it's kind of hard not to back Minnesota, just because I feel like the talent is way better with D'Lo and Towns. But if he doesn't play, I mean, Memphis, I would like Memphis quite a bit. You can their plus, and I'm still looking at this trade news. Sorry, guys, but their plus, and if Towns is not in,
hard not to.
Yeah, that's the only thing. Injuries is going to be the way I play this game. If Towns is in, I'll play Minnesota. If he's out, I'll be grabbing the points with Memphis just because Minnesota is also not a great team, and I probably lean more towards the under just because I don't trust Memphis to do a lot of scoring. I don't really trust their offense too much. Minnesota's offense hasn't been great either. So I would lean towards an under, and depending on Towns, it'll be Towns in, Minnesota, Towns out, Memphis.
And if Towns is out, maybe look at our former Raptor there, JV, Jonas Valanciunas, maybe feast down low tonight for the Grizzlies. So something to keep in mind there. I mean, he's not a good defensive big man, but he can certainly score in that paint area. And he probably will and have a big night if K-A-T, Karl Anthony Towns isn't in there tonight for Minnesota. All right, last two games because Atlanta-Phoenix got postponed, so we move on down to Portland and Sacramento. The Blazers, 3.5-point road favorites, 236.5 the total in this game. High total, but you can understand why Sacramento's defense is kind of evaporated in recent games. Played better actually against Indiana the other night, though, against the Pacers. So give Sacramento a little bit of credit for that performance. See how they fare here, though, against Portland. But Sacramento taking money again after finally covering that number against Indiana the other night. Portland opened 5, down to 3.5 here in this game. Obviously, these are two teams I simply don't trust consistently at the defensive end of the court. It's two teams that may show up one game, get some stops, play better, but to be able to string multiple games in a row where they're playing good lockdown defensively at that end of the court, it's difficult to trust them in that regard. I know Damian Lillard currently listed as a game time decision, so keep your eye on his status for the Blazers, and that could explain why there's been some early support for Sacramento in this game. So it's a game that, again, you want to keep your eye on whether Dame is going to end up suiting up. But Sacramento did improve, take a step forward, snapped a little bit of some bleeding. They were on a straight-up ATS skid before the performance against Indiana. So maybe Sacramento gets a little bit of a momentum boost from that. We'll have to wait and see. But for me, it's a pass for this game. I'd lean over, but the total's just pretty big. And without Lillard, if he doesn't go, I'd be a lot less inclined to go over this total. What's your thoughts, Skee, with Portland, Sacramento?
Yes, Sacramento has not been playing any defense, really. Both teams playing extremely fast lately. Pace over the last 5 games sitting at 4th and 3rd. I trust both offenses to put the ball in the bucket. Like you said, you want Damian Lillard in. De'Aaron Fox, it's not looking like he's a question mark. He's going to be in. Buddy, you want him in. He's some scoring and shooting for them. And the last guy, Holmes. I lean towards over. As long as you seem to get Lillard and Buddy in, it's hard not to. It should be an up and down game, track meet type game. So I look for points. And if I'm going to do a side, I just think that Sacramento, when healthy, I think that they can contend in games like this where teams aren't that great defensively. So I will be probably taking the points with Sacramento.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Sacramento showed well for themselves against an Indiana team that certainly is a better team on the defensive end of the floor than Portland is. So you would think if they can compete with Indiana, certainly can do that here against this Blazers team. Blazers team that's tough to ask to win by margin. It really is. Look at the Toronto game the other night. Life and death to win that game, and they had to come back to beat the Raptors. So this is a team to lay points with. It's not the team for me. That's for sure when it comes to the Portland Trailblazers. All right, the nightcap here. We've got New Orleans and the LA Clippers. Clippers 8.5-point home favorites. This has gone up from 6.5 to 16, the total in this one. I was kind of set to lean to the Pelicans a little bit here, and then we get just clubbed upside the head with a 2x4. I do anyway, with this Zion Williamson news that he's downgraded to out for this game. So now I'm a little bit more hesitant. Pull the trigger on the Pelicans side here. And the Pelicans have just been one of those teams that they haven't necessarily played to the level we all expected. We all expected this big push forward, and we've just seen too much inconsistency. The defense has been there in some games, and some games it hasn't. And some games they've actually struggled to put the ball in the basket as well, the Pelicans, which clearly wasn't an issue for them a lot last year. It was defense. And they're also banged up. Zion's not the only guy out. Eric Bledsoe's a game-time decision. J.J. Redick's a game-time decision. Lonzo Ball is out for this game as well for the Pelicans. So they've got some key guys out to the point where I'm pumping the brakes a little bit on the Pelicans, which was my initial lean here. The thing is, though, the Clippers laying these kind of points, it's all about, are they locked in? Are you going to get the Clippers' best game, Skee, for 48 minutes, or are you going to get them lollygagging like they did against Chicago, in that game where they were life and death against the Bulls over the weekend when they were double-digit favorites? So that's the problem with sometimes trusting the Clippers when they're laying this kind of points. So yeah, I'd still lean slightly New Orleans, but I'm telling you what, with all these guys potentially sitting out, it really tempers my enthusiasm to back the road underdog here. What's your thoughts, Skee? Pelicans, Clippers?
Last night, I was looking at this game and I was almost about to run to the window to go to the Pelicans. Then I had to remember no Lonzo Ball and look at the injury report pretty much. Bledsoe.
Rough. Yeah.
If they have everybody and have Bledsoe out, I would still love the Pelicans, but just a pile on of injuries, Zion and Lonzo. I'm not a big Bledsoe fan, if you can't tell, but it gets tough to get to the window with New Orleans now. With that said, I don't want the Clippers in this role because the Clippers haven't been playing defense, and you want to win by double digits and you're not playing defense. It's just tough to see that happening. Pelicans have been a great rebounding team. They've been pretty solid on the defensive end, so I was expecting them to kind of stay in this game. And this is honestly a spot where I like to fade teams like the Clippers, teams that are at home with rest. They're coming off a game that they won as a favorite, but they had to come back. They were down double digits. They had to exert some energy and come back. Teams like that, 13, 29, and 1, 31% against the spread since about 2019 in December. So the only way I could play this game would be to play New Orleans.
Yeah, I still lean New Orleans. I'm with you there. I don't know if I will because I'm concerned about this injury situation. But I thought from a spot perspective, it lined up for New Orleans. Get on the road. These teams, you always battle the Clippers. Hell, the Bulls. Look at the Bulls aren't even all that great. And we got up to play the Lakers. They gave the Lakers a game. They gave the Clippers a game in back-to-back road games for Chicago. These teams get fired up going on the road playing these LA heavyweights here, the Lakers and the Clippers. And I think it's a good spot. It's what the doctor ordered for a inconsistent, scuffling New Orleans team. But unfortunately, they're very banged up, as Skee and I have mentioned here. So kind of takes away our enthusiasm, but we would still lean to the dog in this one. There we go. There's the card. We're obviously going to get a lot more info on this blockbuster trade here. James Harden off to Brooklyn, Victor Oladipo, everybody involved, Karis LeVert to Indiana. I mean, it is just an unbelievable trade here involving these three teams, Pacers, Rockets, and Nets. We knew it had to happen at some point with Harden when he's basically that public with his statements last night after the just debacle. That was just a lay down and quit effort from the Rockets last night against the LA Lakers. You knew something had to happen. They just can't keep this dumpster fire and this tire fire around the team forever. He's clearly disgruntled. He's clearly not happy. He's clearly in that, not giving a shit mode right now. Get him out of there. And I know you're trying to get as sweet a deal and sweet a return as possible if you're the Rockets, but you had to move on this before things really got almost to the point where it's, that workplace environment where you just can't be around your coworkers and you can't wait to get home every night. That's what it was getting toward that point with the Rockets right now, the longer they've sat on this with James Harden. So they had to make the move, Skee, and clearly they've done that today.
Yeah, and I think it was definitely a good move. The Rockets will probably be really good now against. Oh, sorry, I hit the mute button. But the next couple of games, it's just good to get those kind of toxic guys out the locker room. And you heard John Wall speak. If everybody buys in, I think they'll be all right. Doesn't
it sound like this could be a bet on team these first couple games post James Harden era in Houston? It gets that sense for me. They've struggled. They're below 500. You got players, not happy with the situation. James Harden, not combating with his teammates, publicly voicing displeasure. Now he's out of there, breath of fresh air. Everybody can take a deep breath, relax a little bit, not be on pins and needles. You watch Houston maybe play some of their best games of the season coming up these first couple games now after getting rid of James Harden in this trade today.
I would agree.
Yeah, so keep an eye on that with Houston. We'll see if maybe there's a little bet on run for them coming up in the near future. All right, Skee, I know it's not a card that we're in love with. There's a lot of player personnel question marks. Of course, the Brooklyn-New York game with everything going on. But I'm going to go to that game for my best bet, Brooklyn and New York. And I'm sticking with the total in that game. It is still, now it's been bet down a bit. It was 219.5. I'm seeing 217 right now. So it's already moved down 2.5 points, but I agree with the move, and I think there's still value. Brooklyn got their shit together defensively in the second half against Denver last night. I think that can carry over to tonight. It's not like New York's offense, especially lately. Like the Knicks just haven't been putting up points the last few games. Denver shuts them down. Charlotte shuts them down. Charlotte Hornets doing that to New York. So it's not like New York's lighting up the basket right now. I think we get a defensive battle here in this game. Brooklyn, New York, under 217. I'm going to go with that for my best bet for this Wednesday card. Skee, what do you got for best bet?
I'll stay in the same game, and I'll use the bet that I was rushing to make while I was on the show. The number's not there anymore. I got 5 on the Knicks, but you can maybe find a 4. I think 3.5 even. I just don't think the Brooklyn team maybe comes to play. I'm looking at who's available. I just had it pulled out. They have 9 players available. Kevin Durant, Joe Harris, DeAndre Jordan, Bruce Brown, Shamet, Jeff Green, and a couple other guys you don't normally see. So I'll be on the New York Knicks side. That's my best bet.
Yeah, and just like with a lot of these, I know New York's kind of, come back down to earth a bit, but hey, they'll be fired up hosting Brooklyn at home, bounce back. They've had a couple losses in a row. I hear you. I agree with you there on the Knicks. And Bruce Brown, by the way, kudos to Nash. He put Brown in the starting rotation last night, and he delivered a hell of a game against Denver. But you really trust him to do that 2 games in a row? I'm not so sure about that. So, a great game last night. Let's see if he can do it again. And it's a back-to-back situation too. So I think that benefits New York. They're definitely the more rested team. Brooklyn's shorthanded now after this trade. So I'm with you on New York, and I think it leads to a lower scoring game as well. So there you go. We gave you the side and total, essentially, of the Nets and the Knicks game for best bets today. Skee liking New York, plus 3.5, plus 4. And I'm on Brooklyn, New York, under 217 for best bet on this Wednesday show. That'll wrap it up. We're going to get all this latest news on this blockbuster trade that's gone down. That's the first time this has ever happened in any sport with this big of a trade going on as I'm doing a show. So this has been a new one for me, but obviously huge NBA news with James Harden finally sent packing out of Houston. But thanks to everyone in the chat for joining us. We appreciate it. We'll be back, Skee and I, along with Connor, Mac, Friday, 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. For our next edition of the NBA Closing Time Show right here on Pub Sports Radio. Skee, any last thoughts before we go?
I know the Nets got James Harden, but it's still going to be Lakers in 6.
There you go. I mean, that's the funny thing. And before we sign off, I'm going to mention this because I said this on Twitter last night, and I stand by it. James Harden's talking about like everything else was the problem in Houston the last couple of years. Last I checked, you were on these teams that flopped in the playoffs year in and year out and missed shots and didn't get back on defense and guard people with games on the line down the stretch of tight playoff games. You are part of that issue as well, Mr. Harden. So let's not just make it sound like the franchise is the problem for not surrounding me with talent. Let's not make it sound like the teammates around me didn't get the job done while I carried them all the time. No, you came up small in a lot of those big-time playoff games. Where the hell was your spirit last year when the Lakers were blowing the friggin' doors off you in an elimination game last year in the bubble? Where the hell was that, James? Explain that to me. I'm waiting. Hello? Yeah, I'm not going to hear anything from him there, I'm sure. Talking about his culpability, his impact on the Houston woes and failures and shortcomings the last couple of years. We won't hear about what James didn't do right. We're going to hear about what everybody else didn't do right. That's what bothers me.
I agree. People know, if you follow me for a couple of years by now, you know how I felt about James Harden. I don't think he's going to win over there either.
There we go. Yeah, so buyer beware on the Brooklyn Nets, as if they had enough drama to deal with Kyrie and his nonsense. And now here comes Mr. Drama Part 2, James Harden coming to town. So looking forward to that. Yeah.
Yeah, poor KD. He went from having a team everybody loved each other, playing with each other. The environment was good, selfless player and Steph Curry. Now he has to deal with Kyrie and James Harden.
Yeah, exactly. Good luck. He's going to have fun with that. And poor Steve Nash, who's one of the most low-key, laid-back, nothing bothers him guys you'll ever meet, Steve Nash. And look now what he's going to have to deal with. Again, he's already had to deal with Irving. Now he's going to have to deal with James Harden and his shenanigans on a daily basis. So the soap opera continues as the Nets turn. The Nets and the restless, what you want to call the Brooklyn Nets situation, but it is like a soap opera. And it's going to be fun to see it unfold. That I will admit. All right, that'll wrap it up. Skee Profit, thanks as always. I'm Ian Cameron for Skee Profit. Have a great Wednesday night. Enjoy the NBA action. We'll see you again Friday, 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. We're back Friday for another edition of the NBA Closing Time Show right here on Pub Sports Radio.